You think I'll let you zone?
Baka.
Miles is in Wakanda, and what could possibly go wrong? If Miles is international right now, then who's back in Brooklyn covering for him? And can T'Challa really cure him with Bast's help? Let's find out in issue 27. Miles is in class getting called on to answer a question, but can't answer or is giving incomplete answers to the teacher because something is very wrong. Genki senses this, and he tells Mr. Acapulco Miles is a bit under the weather right now and might need to go to the bathroom. Later, Genki sees that Shift has been standing in for Miles, and they can probably get by with getting Shift some rest from being small if they hang out till the bell rings. But he better be prepared for a long day of being small. And wonders if Shift is at school, then where did Miles go to? Miles is in the Wakandan streets with T'Challa, commenting that the more he sees of this place, the more it reminds him of New York. T'Challa says people don't realize how places are more alike than they realize. Miles wonders what they're doing at some apartments, and T'Challa says they're here to see a friend about a key they need. Niobe freaks out at the sight of Spider-Man and thinks he's the herald of a Nazi, but tells him to calm down as he's from Brooklyn. Niobe can't seem to find the key as it was just here. It doesn't really make any sense. T'Challa asks Spider-Man to use that detective work he's been working on, and Miles activates his improved spider sense. He finds the thief outside the window and gives chase. Panther doesn't have time to play because he needs that key and gets caught up in a trap while it's up to Spider-Man now. He's in the mood to joke with the jet lag and being undead, so it'll be all business from here on out, but the thief asks if he needs some tea to calm his nerves. Spider-Man sneak attacks with a drop kick, and the thief calls him a demon with how much he wanted to kill her. As T'Challa brings Miles back and passes the test with Spider-Man saying what do they mean. T'Challa wanted to know if he still had his humanity and not a vampire, because the trial made by the gods are filled with riddles and doublespeak. That not all gods are fond of humans like Thor, God of Thunder. Back at school, Shift is making a scene and is eating like he's never eaten before. Genki tells him to cool it, and Shift apologizes because he was having fun. Judge and Co meet up with them and ask if Miles is okay. Genki says he's sick and they give him some cough drops and hope he gets better. Shift asks why did they do that, and Genki says friends help each other, and Shift likes the sound of that. Back in Wakanda, T'Challa asks what does he know about Wakanda? That they have the most advanced science in the world, they have a Black Panther, and he's not gonna ask to confess his sins, is he? T'Challa laughs and says he's not a priest, but if there's something that's on his mind, then he can lend an ear. Miles is angry that he feels violated that the vampire god infected him, that it only took 1 second of laying down his guard and he could have hurt people he never wanted to in the first place. T'Challa understands fear and anger are natural to feel. It's what allows us to survive, but to live in the past and what ifs is no better than living in a prison of your own making. That's when a panther comes to the pair and Spider-Man says, do they want to wait to be eaten? And T'Challa says no, they wait for Bast's judgment. This is something that cannot be won with prowess or japes, but with the soul and spirit. After being read by Bast, Miles is deemed fit to enter Bast's domain for now. They make it to the soul tree when, if worthy, you can commune with Bast, and Miles asks, with its help will he be cured of his vampirism? T'Challa says it's not that simple, but he will help him the best he can because the ritual requires more. As the comic ends, Shuri appears saying that T'Challa alone will not help him, but with her as well, are more than capable. In part 2 of Webs of Wakanda, Miles seeks to commune with Bast with the help of T'Challa and Shuri for the cure to his vampirism. Will the goddess be willing to help the young spider, or will she turn him away because he's an outsider with no connection to her? Let's find out. Shuri asks what her brother and Spider-Man are doing at the soul tree. T'Challa was hoping that Bast could cure him as well, like she did him before, because this sickness is a spiritual one. And Shuri runs that plan by again, which was to sneak Spider-Man past their borders in hopes of Bast's anger would scare the vampirism out of him. She thinks her brother is foolish to have so much faith in Bast to be helpful in anything. The brother and sister duo state that Bast does not take kindly to strangers just showing up in her home, but for him to talk to Bast, he will need to pass a trial because unlike him, they can talk with her freely. Everything Miles experienced up till now was merely a background check to be invited, but now the hard part. A trial to see if you are worth a goddess's time and help. The key they took isn't an actual key, but a piece of the heart-shaped herb, and Shuri says for an outsider to even take this, the royal family must have really like you for some reason. But do not trust what you see in the astral plane when talking with gods. And does he accept this trial? Back at school, Shift has been fitting in pretty well, then goes into hero mode and saves a baby from a bus. Genki congratulates him on a job well done, that he has the hang of his powers more. Why doesn't he start having a life? And Shift would love that, but for now he's getting a slice of pizza and a beef patty. Back in Wakanda, Miles makes some more jokes as Shuri and T'Challa set up the altar to Bast, with Shuri stating he doesn't know how hard it is to get lines correct sidetracked by memory, so Spider-Man needs to just shut it. T'Challa says to let him get comfortable, but to know every trial is different per person, as Miles wanders into the domain of Bast. Bast is enraged that T'Challa will walk in just so blatantly, but T'Challa is there to explain why Miles is there, and that he means no disrespect, but Bast tells the Panther he already did if he didn't mean to, as T'Challa and Miles plead their case for a cure, as Bast isn't buying it because how dare T'Challa bring someone who is already spoken for. Anansi tells his sister to forgive them because how would they know that this one is spoken for by a Nazi? While the siblings bicker, T'Challa tells Miles why didn't he tell him that the spider god cleaned him already, and Miles didn't know either. Anansi tells Bast that they have to save his herald or they will be lost to this vampirism eventually. Bast doesn't need a lecture. Anansi didn't mean to give one, but they can cure this child though. Anansi asks Miles is he ready, and he confirms it. The trial is simple. Give Anansi a good story, to which it is to defeat the Black Panther for the cure as the comic ends. It's Miles versus T'Challa in a trial to save Miles' soul from an evil vampire god. Can he pass the test, or will the young Spider-Man be doomed to be a vampire forever? Let's find out on what the gods have planned for him. We started with Bast telling the young spider that making a deal will be bad for everyone since he reinfected the Black Panther. Miles is yelling at Anansi for lying about curing him. Anansi takes offense to that, as he will cure him, but first must make sure he is worthy of being a champion. And what better story than a spider besting a panther? Tries his best to talk some sense into T'Challa, but it's not getting through, as Anansi tells him it's not working. But he will get the cure, and a lesson he needs, will learn at the end of this. And by the way, his spider sense won't work in a place he does not understand. Miles tries to beat his way out, but the venom punches aren't doing any damage because of his vibranium. And Anansi says he better think of something fast if that's the case. Bast is getting tired of her brother playing with immortals and not helping like he should, because Anansi is just wasting everyone's time. So she tells Miles that punching won't do anything in a realm that's like it's equal to a breeze. And Anansi interrupts, as this is a battle of the soul, so he will help his herald understand that. Anansi is testing him to see if he has the willpower to be his next herald, and Miles doesn't understand as he is launched into his own mindscape. Once there, Miles comes face to face with his greatest fears, Venom, Rabble, and the Assessor. While that happens, we check back in with Shift, and Rio asks how is school and does he mind watching Billy for a second. Shift sees his reflection and starts to doubt himself as a person, but Rio tells him that he is wanted and he is loved in this house, and as long as he's in this house, he is a Morales. So never doubt yourself, ever. Back with Miles, he powers through 2 nightmares as he tries to remind himself that these are illusions, so they're not real, until he gets stabbed by Rabble and says she is as real as his fear of her. But Miles tells Anansi to stop this and to get out of his head while Panther returns for another round. Why resist being a vampire, or is it his cowardice is as strong as he would condemn a man to remain a vampire? And Anansi tells Miles that the ending to this story is up to him. But what will he do? Miles doesn't want to leave T'Challa as a vampire, so he has to fight. But Anansi says, will violence work when it didn't before? Why not leave the sickness in T'Challa and run, as Anansi wants a champion, not a cur. But Miles says that this is his responsibility, that if he has to remain a vampire, then he will figure it out like he figured out the spider powers. He didn't ask to be a vampire like he didn't ask to be a spider, but here we are. With that one act, Anansi ends the trial and destroys the essence of the vampire as Bast looks on with a smile at the young hero. Bast tells the young spider that the price for a cure has yet to be paid, but she hopes he knows what he's gotten himself into, while Anansi tells his sister that the Panther and Spider are done with lessons for the day, that his new herald is no longer hers to lecture, and Miles is confused about what he means by that, but that's a story for another time. Before Miles leaves, after being cured, Anansi says why would he leave without saying goodbye, and that it's not fair that his sister gets 2 heralds and all that fame, so now he will watch his stories in real time. And as Miles goes home, Anansi says that their story has only just begun, as the issue ends. The Webs of Wakanda arc is fascinating as Cody Ziegler reintroduced Anansi to the Spider-Man mythos, as he was the original Spider-Man and the Spider God to all the Spider people of the multiverse. That although he's technically nicknamed a trickster god, his official title is the god of wisdom and stories and spiders. That he chooses who becomes a spider and wants to see their story unfold. All the spiders in the multiverse are his champions, but doesn't have a personal herald that he talks to. Some would say Peter, but he only chose him to be a totem, not his herald. Miles is his chosen champion. Through a deal he made with the young spider, he cures him of his vampirism, and he has to pass the trial to show that he is worthy, along with kind of becoming his herald to Miles' disappointment, when he tries to get Anansi to explain himself, but he says for another day. Overall, this mini arc to get cured was really fun and the art was fantastic, even if it was editorial's idea, who asked Cody to extend Miles being a vampire when he was originally supposed to be cured at the end of Blood Hunt. I give this whole little arc a 9 at the end of it all. With that, stay gold and I'll see you guys on the next video.